Yeah, right. So, Lords of Mars. The basic setup is the book starts with a brief recap, and it opens with them going down to a planet they've newly discovered in this newly discovered system beyond the Halo Scar. And the reason they're going down there is to find out the next clue in tracking down Archmage Telok, or Magi Telok, or yeah. And through the course of the book, they do a bit of planet hopping before the final, before the big payoff at the end. Well, before the end, and that's basically the structure. It's just them finding out more about where this thing beyond the Halo Scar, and also trying to track down this Telok. As far as the writing goes, like the first book, the writing is good, but the characters are still far more interesting than the action. There's a lot more action, but it doesn't... It seems to be a bit of a slog. At the start, on this first planet they go down to, there's a lot of the action takes place there, and it's just a bit... I just found it a bit boring. But it does get a bit better further on in the book when they're going to other planets, and the other planet, I mean. It does get more interesting. The characters are still well written. The descriptions in the book are good, but as is the case with Warhammer 40,000, sometimes it's a bit difficult to grasp exactly what they mean, because some of the things they're describing are very science fiction. The characters progress nicely for the most part, some more than others. Kotov, for instance, you see how he's trying to really get on with things, trying to forge ahead to meet his destiny. But you also get like an idea for his frustration about not actually having control over this ship anymore. With Glestia, the sinister character introduced in the last book, being the ship's actual master, so all Kotov can do is pretend he's in control. The Eldar is still in it, and they get more fleshed out. Their characters do. They contribute in terms of interesting little subplots, but nothing, major. And you get a feel for the rifts that are beginning to develop between the Farseer and her aspect warriors, as the Farseer is trying to keep control, and they're all like pretty much ready to go off and do their own thing. It also fleshes out their motivations more, not in terms of why, but in terms of it gives you a better understanding of their motivation. It doesn't give them more motivations, it gives you a better understanding of their motivation. Sometimes they do come across a bit typical, arrogance being their only character trait. The Bondsman. I'm really pleased with this part of the story, because it's turning out to be quite good. Abraham is one of the bondsmen, and he's turned into a bit of a legend among the bondsmen through various events. And he's determined to get fair treatment for himself and the other bondsmen. His actions really define him, and he's a moral man, but he's no saint. And he wants to do the right thing, but he's got like difficult decisions to make, and like uncomfortable things to face. So that really pays off. Glastier, I think that's how you pronounce the name anyway. That's the sinister character introduced late in the first book. Is still there. And he's still integrated so deeply into the Arc Mechanicus that no one can really do anything about him. No one can really harm him. His story in this disappointed me slightly, but I'll go into that in a little bit. So, just a word on plot twists. I'll try and keep it spoiler free, but some of the plot twists in this story are disappointing. Because they just don't do the business. I mean, some of the questions set up by the ending of the first book amount to pretty much nothing in this book. And one of the other... I can think of another time this has happened, like a potential subplot has been mentioned, but then never... mentioned once, but never mentioned again. And, well, maybe book 3 will change that. But the biggest disappointment comes in the payoff to one of Glastier's, I think that's how you pronounce it, one of his subplots. Because it's supposed to be the big thing at the ending, but it's completely predictable. I mean, I predicted it, I think, by the mid point in the book. And I think maybe you could even predict it before. You know, and the reason this is such a problem is that it leaves the ending feeling just flat. You know, you get to the ending and you predicted it already. I mean, the ending still dangles interesting, like, things there for you to find out about in the next book, and I'll still be interested to read the next book, but I'm not quite as enthusiastic about it as I was when I'd finished this book. In summary, it's good, but not great. Worth reading despite its flaws. It isn't quite as good as the first one, but it keeps the series going well enough that I want to read the third book. I would suggest to you get it in paperback and save yourself some money on the hardback, but, you know, that's just by the by. Anyway, happy reading.